Welcome. I have a bit of a cold, and I was also watching Independence Day, and I kind of cry at the end of that movie. So I'm a little bit congested and kind of snotty sounding more than usual. So tonight I'm still reading from Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul, and we're on chapter 3. And the chapter is called Shredding the Activist Ideal. I'm going to read this whole entire chapter word for word because I think the whole chapter is so very important, especially in our community where we talk about. A lot of people say this. I see people say this a lot. You're not a true supporter if you do or don't do these things. Like, I hear it all the time. You're not a true supporter if you don't sign this petition. You're not a true supporter if you don't go to a rally. You're not a true supporter if you don't have a Twitter. I was actually kind of bullied for that. I deleted my Twitter recently, and somebody said, what kind of supporter are you for deleting your Twitter? But yeah, so it's all over in our community, and I think this chapter is just like really, really great for especially our community. So. And it also opens up with a really cool story that I remember hearing when I was a kid. My mom told me this story. So, chapter 3. To free us from expectations of others, to give us back to ourselves. There lies the great singular power of self-respect by Joan Didion. Let me do this real quick. I wish I could be out there marching with you. Nichelle Nichols, known for her groundbreaking role as communications officer Nyota Yahora on the Star Trek, spoke those words in 1967. Hey, Anne, welcome. To Martin Luther King when she met him at NAACP fundraiser after the show's first season. Her lament likely echoed that of many African Americans who couldn't join the civil rights marches happening in the South, perhaps due to work, financial constraints, the inability to travel, health issues, or the real threat of physical harm. Maybe you have thought the same thing or even spoken it aloud. I know I have. I have seen protests and sit-ins and press conferences and advocacy campaigns on the news or social media, and I've wanted desperately to be there. But at the same time, as a sensitive person, I haven't wanted to be there. The thought of participating in such a loud, aggressive, contagious, risky social action terrifies me. I don't feel like I have it in me to do that and still manage day-to-day responsibilities of working and taking care of my kids. In all likelihood, the resulting stress and trauma would probably outweigh any good resulting from my individual participation. Yet the thought persists. I should be there. I should at least want to be there. At the NAACP dinner, I imagine Nichelle Nichols expected Dr. King to say she should join them on the streets when she could, or she could use her growing fame to speak out more for civil rights. Those are the kind of responses I've heard from friends and colleagues in social justice when I've sheepishly declined their invitations to go there. Instead, according to an account Nichols shared with NPR in 2011, King responded, No, 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 no. You don't understand. We don't need you to march. You are marching. You are reflecting what we are fighting for. For the first time, we were being seen the world over as we should be seen. Instead, according to an account Nichols shared with NPR I already read that. Dr. King went on to say, Star Trek was the only show he and his wife allowed their children to stay up watching, and they watched because of Nichols. One of the only black women on television portraying a strong, brilliant leader, highly respected by her colleagues, whether they were white, men, or aliens from a distant planet. Dr. King's response stunned the actress and altered the trajectory of her life. Nichols had been planning to leave the show after its first season, leveraging her newfound recognition to pursue a different career path. Instead, after this exchange, she decided to stay on as Lieutenant O'Hara. She ended up starring in 70 episodes of Star Trek series and 6 Star Trek films, influencing an entire generation of Americans, especially Black Americans. Her role included one of the first interracial kisses between Lieutenant O'Hara and Captain Kirk on scripted U.S. television. It aired just over a year after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down state laws banning interracial marriage in 1967 case Loving versus Virginia. In addition, Nichols' fictional role as a space traveler actually gave her influence over real-life space travel. After the original Star Trek series ended, Nichols volunteered with NASA to recruit more diverse astronauts, focusing on women and African Americans. She helped recruit Sally Ride and Gideon Bluford, the first American female astronaut and Black astronaut, respectively. The character of Lieutenant O'Hara also inspired the lives and careers of Mae Jemison, the first African American woman in space, Whoopi Goldberg, who had a starring role in Star Trek Next Generation, Barack Obama. Sorry, where was I? Nichelle Nichols worked as an actress, which at first glance might seem inconsequential compared to the efforts of those marching, sitting at lunch counters, and registering voters, actually contributing meaningful to the civil rights movement and social progress on a national scale. She did not need to march in the streets. She was, as Dr. King said, already marching in her own way by showing an entire nation what was true and what was possible. Advocates for progress come in all forms. Social change is propelled by many people doing many different things that nudge us towards fair and more inclusive societies. Yet many of us persist in thinking that some approaches are better than others, more real than others, more legitimate than others. We imagine that there is a quintessential version of what an activist should be and what an activist should do. A 2020 study of anti-adversity activists in Europe, for instance, found that activists had strict parameters defining who should be part of the movement. In order to be considered an ideal activist, individuals must do enough of the right type of activism, direct action rather than online activism. This is in their ideals. According to researcher Emma Craddock, the ideal active identity is underpinned by the distinction participants drawn between talking and doing, which feeds into the construction of direct offline action as a pinnacle of real activism versus online slacktivism. Slackativism. A slacker. You're being a slacker. Activists also judge one another based on their individual lived experiences, judging whether or not someone had the authority to speak out or even participate in a given movement. For anyone, these are incredibly high standards. Most people would fall short of that ideal. And for those of us who are sensitive, this perceived failure might cause us to feel achingly inadequate or ashamed. Introverts can feel similarly deficient in cultures that strongly favor extroverted personalities. These cultures aspire what Susan Cain calls the extrovert ideal, or the omnipresent belief that the ideal self is rigorous, alpha, and comfortable in the spotlight. The archetyped extrovert prefers action to contemplation, risk-taking, and heed-taking, certain to doubt. We like to think that we value individuality, but all too often we admire one type of individual, the one who's comfortable putting themselves out there. It's still, yeah, that's the American society right there. This isn't too different from what I call the activist ideal. Now, this is something definitely to pay attention to in this chapter, which we collectively contribute to and maintain. According to the activist ideal, those of us who care about social justice must be bold and fearless. Even researching this book, I found many instances of the word fearless used to describe individuals dedicated to a cause. This is despite the fact that it is humanly impossible to live without fear. The only known person to ever live without fear had a rare genetic disorder that destroys large parts of her brain. They don't name that person. There's a reference number here. I think I can go in the back of the book, and then I could look up the chapter. So this is reference 8. Who that person was Laura Sanders. Rare brain disorder prevents all fear. Science News. December 16th, 2010. And then there is the website for it on wired.com. So I'm gonna look that up later because that actually sounds really intriguing. All right. The activist ideal requires us to be at the front of the march, in the thick of the action, in direct confrontation against the oppressors. The activist ideal asks us to always prioritize the needs of those we are serving above our own. The activist ideal demands that we persist against every conceivable internal or external obstacle, trying every possible option without ever doubting or giving up. The activist ideal requires nothing less than full and total commitment to the case over the course of our entire lives. And nothing, not our health or our loved ones, or risk to or danger, or the apocalypse itself should ever weaken that commitment. Anyone actually living up to this activist ideal would be impressive indeed, but it is not possible. Yet many of us still try to be some version of this idealized model of activism. We swallow our feels and ignore that sick feeling in the pit of our stomach, or we work ourselves to the point of exhaustion because we think that is what we are supposed to do. That's me. That's totally me. Like, I get, like, if I don't feel like I'm doing enough in the cause, then I feel like I'm failing somehow. And the point of exhaustion, it feels normalized at this point. Like, yeah. The thought of falling short of the standard and potentially disappointing our peers and failing our communities feels worse to us than the stress and strain we put on ourselves to embody all that the best, most effective activists should be. I just said that. Right? It feels so normalized to feel exhausted and all that if I don't feel that way, then I don't feel like I'm doing a good enough job. The peer pressure in social justice circles to meet the activist ideal is immensely strong, and a growing body of research on social activists. Scientists have identified a persuasive culture of selflessness and martyrdom in social justice organizations and networks. This entails a culture of suppressing concerns about activists' well-being altogether, going so far as to police each other's commitment to causes by belittling attempts at self-care. Explained researchers share Winexa Chen and Paul C. Gorski of the Center of Advancement of Wellbeing at George Mason University. Shannon Gogorsky found that activists constantly feel shame and guilt when thinking about their own well-being, and the vast majority reported never having a conversation or receiving monitoring about self-care within their organizations. In study after study, activists from many different movements, radical justice, that's us guys, peace, education, LGBTQ rights, and more, consistently report feeling burdened by expectations from within social justice groups. In an area focused on caring, justice communities have failed to care for one another. We have decided that others deserve our empathy and attention, but we ourselves do not deserve any. We have come to equate dedication with... What was that word? I just turned the page for you. Dedication with, self-sacrifice and passion with working ourselves into dust. We have created a culture of all or nothing. You are either fully in, heart, mind, body, and soul, no matter the pain, sacrifices, or consequences, or your contribution doesn't matter. You either change the world or you fail to do anything at all. We uphold the activist idea as a true reflection of our hearts and souls when it's actually another tool of division, oppression, and control. So that's why I just want to pause here. That's why in the past, I've always said this, and I'll say this now. I do not believe in a true supporter. I do not believe that Brendan has true supporters versus whatever. Brendan has supporters. And it's just, I hate it when people say true supporter in our community. I do, because I do feel like it's a bit manipulative. Your life and family always should come first. And Brendan understands that 100%. All the time. He would never, ever, ever, ever expect any of his supporters to give up anything or to hurt themselves or to hurt their family somehow. Your obligation is to that. Hey, Roxana! Or is it Roxanne? Roxanne! I don't know why I always think of you as Roxana. Wait, are you the Roxanne? Yeah, you are. Your name just looks different. Anyway, hi. But yeah. So I just wanted to pause and say that Brendan cares a lot about his supporters. He cares a lot about your guys' well-being and your safety. And he would never expect anybody to give up anything for him, or nor want you to. He wants you to take care of your lives, your families, your stuff. You know what I mean? That's why he's so appreciative that you do take the time to do something for him positive or helpful. But it's not like you have to give up something. You have to, you know what I mean? That's there's no other way of putting that. So yeah, he wants everyone to be happy, and to be safe, and yeah, send him a letter or a card, or do what you feel like you can do. I'm not saying don't support him. If you can go to a rally, if you can send postcards, if you can, write to the governor or tweet, or if you can do all the above, or if you can just tweet. That's the whole thing, though. It's like, if all you feel like you can do is tweet at Governor Evers, and that's just as good as someone showing up to a rally. Anyway, activists themselves admit, and researchers agree, that this culture of all or nothing martyring. What? I barely wrote him yesterday. Oh, how's Brendan doing, Becca? He's doing really good. He's positive as normal. He's excited about books I sent him, and I think he should have gotten one of them at least, and there's another one that should be being sent to him soon. But yeah, And yeah, he's overall doing good. I know his email still gives him issues, so like I say this, I told one person this, and I think this is what, what I normally do is because, like I said, he can only see like a certain amount of emails at one time. So like he's got like 50 plus people he writes to, right? So you can imagine if 50 plus people send him a message, but he can only see the first top 20. So if you sent him a message and then 20 people immediately after you send a message, then it bumps your email down and then he can't see it anymore. That's basically what I'm trying to say is that he's still having that issue. And the way I sometimes communicate with him, if I know if it's something important I'm asking him or whatever, and I send him an email and I don't hear from him in a couple of days, I usually send like a meme or something just to bump my email back up to the top of the list because it's a new message. You know what I mean? I'm not saying harass Brendan. I'm just saying like it's okay to, if you send him an email and he hasn't responded in like a week or so, it's okay to then follow up with a, hey, just making sure you got my email, or send him a meme or something just to pop your email back up to the top so he has a better chance at reading it. So the email thing is great and it's convenient, but ever since they switched to this new tablet, it's been nothing but a pain in the ass. So yeah, believe it or not, excuse me. Believe it or not, he actually, I don't really email him a lot, Roxanne, and he doesn't really email me a lot. I mean, he calls me every Saturday. So I'm not, saying we don't talk. When I'm saying it's just with the email thing is such an inconvenience and it's such a pain in the butt. And if there's nothing super important I have to email him, I won't. So that way other people's emails can get through better. People, because there's some people like you, Roxanne, that that's your way of communicating with him. So, yeah. How have you been doing, Becca? I missed you too, Roxanne. I feel like I need to try to be on here more because I'm not. That's why I've been reading this book. Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul. But I've been okay. I've just been staying away from certain. Like I deleted my Twitter, so if you haven't seen me on there, that's why. And I've been mostly just. I guess I've been doing a lot of self-care. Like I've been reading a lot of books lately, trying to get my reading number up. I set a goal for myself every year. Last year it was 38 books. Was it 38 books? 36 books or something like that. And then this year I set my goal at 49 books, which are like 4 books a month basically. But I'm already at book 14 and it's February. So I've actually been really proud of myself for that. But I've been reading some really awesome books lately too that have been really entertaining. And yeah, I've seen Brad Schimmel, whatever his name is, running. Oh, is he? That's fantastic. What can we do to now's a good time to tweet at him, I guess. Does he even have Brad Schimmel for Supreme Court? Wisconsin Supreme Court, or he's running for Supreme Court about Wisconsin's Attorney General, known as the state's top cop. Here, I'll show you guys. This is his website. Brad proudly supports law enforcement and tackles some of the largest criminal justice issues facing the state. Oh, has he? Refusing to accept the status quo. I feel like keeping an innocent man in prison for something he didn't do is keeping up with the status quo. Because why else would you be doing it? Oh, here we go. He has a reputation being tough and relentless in his pursuit of justice. He prosecuted a wide range of serious crimes, including elder abuse, human trafficking, homicide, sexual assault, internet crimes against children, and public corruption. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. I'm fighting corruption by being corrupt. I'm fighting for what is this? Homicide. Oh, and he cares about children, but he put one in prison for life. Innocent. Yeah. Right, and his wife Sandy. Isn't Governor Evers' wife's name Sandy? Is that a popular name in Wisconsin? Are proud parents of 2 adoptive daughters. Oh, that's cool. I'll give him that. He's currently a circuit court judge. Is he? Oh, look, you can donate money to his campaign. Surprised he doesn't have something here about
Brad Schimmel, prosecutor, attorney general, rule of law judge. Schimmel put pedophiles behind bars, took on criminal illegals and cartels, protected kids and seniors from abuse.
Law school taught me the rights of the accused, but justice for the abused is denied all too often. I'm Brad Schimmel. On the state Supreme Court, I'll apply the law equally, because everyone has the right to feel safe.
Schimmel for justice.
Everyone has the right to feel safe. Do they, Brad? I'm getting off on a tangent here. We'll have to see. Yeah, see, here you go. He's got a Twitter account right here. I can't. Hold on. I don't want to show the screen. I can't log in, obviously. But if anybody wants to maybe tweet at him, that's his Twitter. And maybe we can remind you and use hashtag Brad Schimmel. Hashtag Brad Schimmel. Hashtag, let's see, he's got schimmelforjustice.com. So maybe Schimmel for Justice, and then maybe remind people what this man did to an innocent child. Maybe I'll make a post about it in our group. Anyway, I'm going to go back to reading this book. But yeah, I'm going to leave the website up here. Let's see. Where did I leave off? I think I left off right here. Okay, yeah. Activists themselves admit and researchers agree that this culture or all or nothing martyrdom is not positive, sustainable, or generative for communities. It does not lead to greater urgency, higher efficiency, or more lasting outcomes. It does not create powerful, unbreakable bonds between team members. Such idealized expectations simply produce an enormous amount of stress for everyone. Yet even those who are aware of the serious consequences of ignoring self-care often get swept up into doing this way of doing things. Somehow it feels right to suffer along those who are suffering. We should be invested everything we possibly can into the work of justice, regardless of the consequences. But this kind of thinking and behavior leads to widespread chronic burnout in social justice circles. The work itself is already incredibly emotionally intense. Combined with an impossible high standard of performance and dedication, we create a perfect storm of stress and strain, one that will inevitably take us out one by one. The cost of burnout is enormous for the individual experiencing it, but also deeply hurt the very movements and societies we're trying to serve. But it also deeply hurts the very movements and societies we're trying to serve. Many who burn out are forced to significantly reduce their participation or withdrawal from justice-oriented work altogether. Their voices, perspectives, skills, gifts, and wisdom become lost to us and the generations after us. Anti-violence and anti-poverty activist Jen Piler explains the cost. Instead of figuring out ways to take care of ourselves and each other, the social justice groups lose brilliant and committed activists to burnout, disillusionment, and poor health. As a result, movements are plagued by fragmentation, lack of reflection, and decision, and the wheel reinventing that keeps them from moving their agendas forward. We all need a different way to serve the social good. We cannot create lasting change if we keep breaking ourselves and one another down. Those who have been doing this work for decades understand this. It's the only way they've been able to continue their efforts. But the tendency to expect superhuman output from mere mortals persists within social justice communities. Who better to help shift the culture of self-sacrifice within the social justice sphere than sensitive and empathic individuals? We are exactly the right kind of people to support strong, sustainable, restorative activism and self-care. We have the skills and resources to showcase how social change agents come in many forms, from the quieter type of activism we engage in to the more balanced, boundaried way in which we pursue that activism. That's fun. I have a joke. I was going to say something, but never mind. To a large extent, we sensitives must do things differently. Otherwise, we cannot substantively serve in capacities that speak to our deepest passions and concerns. We risk deeper emotional wounds, greater trauma, and more negative health consequences than our non-sensitive counterparts. And therein lies, in actuality, one of our more remarkable strengths. We don't seek an alternative approach for ourselves alone, but we also do so for the sake of causes we care so deeply about. We are actually far more effective and can have a more significant impact when we engage in activism in a healthy way and teach others in our communities to do the same. Educational psychologist Kristen Neff discovered that self-compassion and counterpoint to self-sacrifice offers profound and positive benefits to ourselves and our communities. Self-compassion strengthens our coping muscles, builds our resilience in the face of challenging and painful experiences, and empowers us to speak out when something isn't right. I'm almost done, guys. One study of 200 women found that those with higher levels of self-compassion felt stronger and more competent, asserted themselves more, and were more committed to social activism. As researcher Brendan Brown explains, empathy is not finite, but multi-cap. I had to look this word up and then, hold on. Multiplicative. I had to look this word up when I was reading this chapter, and then on Google you can click the thing and then it plays it for you so you can spell it out. I don't know. I'm just like the worst at reading out loud. I don't know why I do these videos. Like, I can read pretty fast in my head, but for some strange reason I just can't pronounce things. Anyway, when we do practice empathy with ourselves and others, we create more empathy, she says. The surest way to ensure that you have a reserve of compassion and empathy for others is to attend to your own feelings. Thanks, Roxanne. Practicing kindness towards ourselves also allows us to live with a more consistent, holistic ethic. When we listen to our own anxieties and hurts, we become more skilled at listening to anxieties and hurts of others. When we respond to grace and compassion to ourselves, we become more willing to extend this same grace and compassion to our colleagues, our community, and even our adversaries. We become agents of change, not simply by what we do, but also by who we are. Nevertheless, the activist ideal persists as mainstream, accepted standard for sensitivities to try to live up to. Being highly attuned to the unspoken expectations placed on us, we are very aware when others approve or disapprove us. If those around us do not think we are dedicated enough to a cause, we will know it in our bones. Even our unequivocally excellent contributions may be marred by the realization that we have disappointed our colleagues. And since sensitive individuals are idealists, of course we want to live up to the ideal promoted by people we respect. This calls for a great deal of courage to live and be different, even among like-minded peers. We need to learn to advocate for ourselves, setting clear expectations with our superiors, peers, and colleagues, and establishing healthy boundaries between activism, rest, and play. To live in ways that are sustainable, we should listen to our minds and bodies, paying attention when something is out of balance or when we're pushing ourselves too hard. There is no need to be the ideal activist. No one is the ideal activist. Instead, we can each be activists exactly as we are. Sensitive souls can unhesitantly embrace the traits within us that nudge us towards healthier, more authentic approaches to changing the world. Our preferences for kindness, empathy, compassion, and more measured pace will serve us well in taking care of ourselves, supporting our peers, and seeking out the purpose that have been uniquely designed for each of us. Whew! Okay. I need some water, so 1 second. I never know if you guys can hear me drinking. But if you can, enjoy some nice ASMR. Alright, so 4 reflection questions. And again, I wrote down my answers and I might explain a little bit more into them. If you guys want to answer, contribute to that, you can in the comments. What your thoughts are. Anything about what I just read too. About what your thoughts are about the chapter. All of that is welcomed here. So, question number 1. What kind of social justice activities do you feel like you should be doing? Where does the pressure to do those activities come from? My answer is, I feel like I should be doing everything. And I think it comes from my peers. And what I mean by if there, no matter who's doing what, I feel like I have to do it too. And if I don't do it, then I feel like I failed Brendan somehow. So like even people who have me blocked, if they do something for Brendan, like a group thing, I feel like I have to participate And if I don't, then I'm failing Brendan. So it just, and I feel like that because I guess everybody in a way kind of feels that way. And I can't remember a time when someone directly said, but I do remember, I was discussing something with somebody about petitions, and they said, and this was a person I really, 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 really respected, still do, and they said, well, if you're a true supporter for Brendan, because I think I was just saying, rather than signing like 20 different petitions, shouldn't we just focus on one petition? Instead of like 20 different get Brendan out petitions, there should just be like one. But anyway, and the person said, well, if you were a true supporter of Brendan, I would imagine you would sign 1 billion petitions. And that kind of made me feel like my opinion wasn't what a true supporter would feel like, and that maybe it wasn't supporter enough. Because, like, well, if you, it's basically saying, like, I would imagine a true supporter of Brendan would do anything and everything. I don't, that's just the impression I sometimes get a lot of times. So, number 2, have you witnessed or experienced the expectations of the activist ideal in your social justice networks? How does the ideal affect you and others you know? And like I just, gave an example of one. So, how does it affect you and others you know? I get a lot of people who actually message me and apologize to me because they can't participate in something. And like as if they did let Brendan down. And I tell them every time, you're fine. You didn't let Brendan down. We all, like, I had one person once say, I'm sorry I can't do the food thing, because I've finances and all that. I'm like, it's fine. Like, you could eat ramen noodles with us and it's still okay, like, I feel like a lot of people have that ideal and impression, and I can see that it hurts people to think that they're not doing, like, what they're doing isn't enough for Brendan when it is, and because it's not, even if you just, like I said, even if you signed one petition or sent one letter to Brendan, or even just a thinking of you card, or do one thing, it's still like amazing, and helpful. Number 3, why do you think it's so tempting to try to live up to an impossible ideal? What steps could you take for yourself, your colleagues, and your organizations to begin to counter this ideal? And I wrote, I think, and I'm going to rephrase it from what I actually wrote, but I think what motivates me is the thought of getting respect. So if I make to the expectation that people expect out of me, then people will respect me. Maybe a motivator for that. And there's also a lot of, like, for me personally, I feel like if I don't reach to that expectation, I'm letting myself down because I'm letting Brendan down. So I want to feel like I'm doing a good job, right? And I wrote, how do I combat that, especially with my peers? I always tell people, we're all human, and you can't do everything all the time. Your family always comes first. Your health always comes first. Your finances always come first. Like, you come first. So I always tell people that, and I hope people believe that, Like, for instance, like a good example is whenever I talk about the interrogations or I play a video, a lot of people who are supporters say they can't watch it because it negatively affects them. And I don't get mad because some people like me can watch them because I feel like every time I feel like I have to watch to see if I missed something or whatever, right? Um, but it's okay if you can't watch it because it affects you that negatively. You need to take care of your own mental health, your own self, you know? That doesn't mean that you don't care or support Brendan any less. Fourth question. How do you think social justice movements and organizations might change if we collectively embrace a more balanced, sustainable approach? Do you think there might be a cost to doing so? And I wrote, I guess, kind of to answer both these questions. I think it does help to have people who strive for better, but maybe have an understanding that not everyone can fill the same role. Because I do believe that it takes all types, you know, to run a company, organization, whatever. You know, it takes introverts, extroverts, whatever. So, you know, if there is somebody that can safely and reasonably do everything and motivate other people to do so, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it helps the flow of the community. But I think there has to be that understanding that if somebody else can't do that or can only do so much, that still doesn't mean they're a bad supporter. You know what I mean? So that's my answer to those, to number 4, basically. I think it would, obviously, the community would work out better like that. But, so yeah, that was the end of chapter 3, and I hope everybody walked away with something new. There's a lot of things like, yeah, exactly. You know, if I can watch just because I can watch a horror movie and you can't watch a horror movie doesn't mean you're a better or not better person. You know, doesn't mean that you don't care about what happened to Brendan or know what happened to Brendan just because you couldn't sit through the interrogation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's see. So I think that's pretty much it. I sent out postcards a couple of days ago, so hopefully people should start getting those. And it's a new design. I'm going to post it in the group probably in the next few days. And I like the idea of people, you know, tweeting about this dude. Using his hashtag. I would use hashtag Team Schimmel, hashtag the website name Schimmel for Justice or whatever. You can hashtag his actual name, you know, and then that way it gets people's attention and just remind people what he did to an innocent kid. So I think that's a great idea. If you're on Blue Skies, you can join me on Blue Skies. I posted the link before. I'm not really as active as I used to be on Twitter. And it's still very new to, like, it's not as poppin'. But I do have a Brendan Talks account on it. And I'm probably going to tweet something later on there because I need to remember to do that again. But yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much what's going on things to update you guys on. And yeah, I'm going to get going. I hope everyone has a fantastic night. And next holiday is St. Patrick's Day, so make sure you send him a card for that. And I'll talk to you guys a little later. Bye, Roxanne. Thank you for being here.